Hey everyone, it's Marcus, and I'm in my jungle room again, chatting, this time all the way over to Hobart, where I'm speaking to Glenn Richards. Glenn Richards, of course, is from Augie March. Glenn, hey, how are you?
G'day, Marcus. I'm good, thanks, mate.
Awesome. Happy whatever day we're up to of the week. I think it's the end of the week, about to. It's, another weekend, and then before we know it, it's going to be Christmas. I don't even know. This year has been a blur. Speaking of blurs, though, how has Moo You Bloody Choir got to 20th anniversary already? Crazy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I agree with you on this year, and it seems like something has happened. There's been a fast forward button press because everybody's saying the same thing.
Holy
Maybe
moly.
we're all just, just super stressed by everything, and it happens that way. But 20 years is a lot. It's not something I want to think about too much, but we're kind of forced to on this occasion. And look, I mean, I've had to answer a few questions over the last couple of days about it, and so I've been forced to think about it. And it doesn't seem like that long ago, that one. I got pretty fresh memories of recording it, and I guess, in different places and meeting a lot of different people while we were doing that. So we recorded some of it in America, some of it in Melbourne, maybe even some in Sydney. I don't know, I can't remember. But it was a pleasant one. It was one of those recording experiences that you look back on and think that's sort of how it should be. Mm.
And I mean, the album is just phenomenal. People have used many of the songs, not just from that album, but from many of your works, weddings, funerals, all that kind of palaver. Um,
Yep.
but I've got to ask you, and you probably answered this many times before in the past, or maybe even in just this little press junket you're doing this week. But Moo, You Bloody Choir, where did that name come from? What was it about?
Uh, okay. It's pretty easy for me to chart that back. It predates the record quite a bit. I think I might have even written a song by that title many, many years ago in Shepparton, which was the town that I grew up in, and a couple of the other boys as well did. There was a house that I think I was just looking after for a week there. And it happened to be just down the road from the local abattoir. And every second night or so, they'd bring the cows in and you would hear them, echoing up the street, which for me, being a pretty strong vegetarian, was kind of a distressing sound. But it also, I took a microphone outside and recorded it a couple of times and got that effect, which is actually on the one of the songs on the record. And it did sound to me like a mournful sort of choir. So there's not a particularly nice tale behind that, but I don't know, it stuck with me that I guess that command, and I mean it's paid off because it's an album title that people seem to remember, and are still asking me questions about.
I mean, I'm just going to throw it out there, and I'm sure no one's ever gone here before. But lucky you just didn't live down the road from a chicken abattoir, or because fuck you, bloody choir. Um,
Yeah, I wonder. Yeah, Cluck.
um,
Good.
moving on. Obviously, the 20th anniversary of Moo You Bloody Choir is going to be celebrated with an Australian tour, which is kicking off the 3rd of April in Perth. Then, yay for us, Saturday, the 4th of April, where I'm from, the Gov, Adelaide. 10th of April in Melbourne and 17th of April in Brisbane.
Mm.
Fabulous. Is it going to do a Hobart jaunt as well?
Yeah, I mean, I'd also chuck Sydney into that. Unfortunately, I simply can't announce it because it's under the umbrella of some other sort of promotional
Yeah.
thingy. So I'm not sure when I can do that, but I got a feeling Sydney might even be first cab off the rank of this lot.
Yep.
But then I got to go away straight after this finishes for a month or two, and hopefully when I get back, we can do the smaller cities and regionals and stuff. We could go out with another band that's doing something similar and make a real party of it throughout the nation. So this is just the first hit.
1995, obviously, you formed, multi-platinum albums, accolades have come in at left, right, and center. Um, from the Sunset Studios album, which was back in 2000, up to the Malagrotta album in
Hmm.
2024, just last year. How do you think the sound has developed? How do you think the band has evolved over that time?
Yeah, that's a good question because, I obviously the first few albums we were lucky enough to get into big professional studios and just throw stuff at the wall, and we had a bit of time to do stuff, and not really knowing much about, ourselves or our music, what it was supposed to be. It was kind of that was a nice time. But since then, and since I moved to Hobart, obviously it gets a bit harder to not only get together, but to afford, those sort of rooms and stuff. So we do things very much bit by bit wherever we can. If we can get together in a room, then we will. If we can't, then we'll fly stuff to each other and, do it entirely in the box, which isn't, it's not perfect, but it can also throw up some pretty unusual results and get guys playing in a different way than they might have, normally. So I kind of enjoy that. But that said, at the moment I'm recording an album with some Tasmanian players, and that's in a beautiful studio, and I'm kind of really enjoying that face-to-face experience. I don't think you can really replicate that.
No. Look, and you will know this. Obviously, the 90s was such a mishmash of different genres that was really exploding in the music
Mm,
industry, whether it be, the rise of the girl groups again, the boy groups, the boy bands were,
yeah.
created, the grunge bands. We had a mishmash of everything. Who were you listening to, as you were forming the band, that was really driving the way?
Yeah. I mean, that's an interesting one because I was trying to get out of Shep, I guess, and get to Melbourne. Like a lot of kids, who grow up in the country, their main aim is to just do well enough at school or, get a job or something in the big smoke just to see what it's like. And I'd sort of grown up in Shep listening to a lot of heavy metal because it was the only alternative that we really had. There was no community radio or anything like that. I think Double J back then didn't reach, that far, and it wasn't Triple J yet. So yeah, a lot of metal, a lot of terrible metal, a lot of good metal, but also I was lucky enough to have an older brother who was growing out of that sort of phase, like, to a degree, and starting to listen to a bit of shoegaze stuff like Ride and Swerve Driver, reissues of old stuff like Big Star, and I started getting into the early REM stuff. And I also had a collection of my uncle's Split Enz records, and they
Wow.
were quite an enormous influence on me, just as I was, I guess, becoming a young adult, and I continued listening to that. And then, of course, like you say, so much stuff started happening in the early 90s. And once I got to uni, it was like, every Tuesday there's a free gig by the Meat Puppets or, any touring band that was coming through. Early days UMI, and so it was all there, and you could go to the Evelyn or the Punters any night of the week and see an excellent local band, and it all rubbed off on me. And everyone feels like when they're watching a band when they're young, I could do that, I could do better than that. And then you start doing it and you realize that you're not going to do better than that for quite a while.
Hey Glenn, as a writer, musician, vocalist, producer, film composer, mixer, arranger, studio operator, you are a creative soul, and I've always said that, creative people don't like to be held in one box. So I totally get it. But as a creative person and, being in the creative industry for a good few decades now, how do you find the technology changes that we're going through and actually
Mm,
really happening actually? Are you finding the industry easier to work in or more challenging to work in? What's your take on it?
yeah. I mean, like, as far as I've been able to sustain myself here in Hobart because I, slowly built a studio. Wherever I've been, I've had something approaching a studio, but finally I've got a room that's kind of big enough and works well enough. And on the film and theatre side of things, I've been able to, to make something like a career as well as chucking in a bit of touring and stuff. And I've been able to do it all myself here. So kind of one-stop shop. From that point of view, it's enormously easier than it used to be. You're not having to outsource stuff. If you can develop the skills, then you can do it yourself, which is a bit sad for the broader industry. So you're not working with those professionals that you might have once, and so I think the quality is probably dropping off, but then you get, more unique approaches to things as well. I think as far as like purely the music side of things, like I said, we're able to make a record just by sending files to each other, so it's a lot easier. But again, if you don't sort of put heaps and heaps of work into it, you can put stuff out that's passable, but I think if your audience is discerning enough, they're going to know if you've half-assed it. Mm.
Mm. Well, with all the areas that you shine in and play in, where does Glenn Richards sit more boldly at the moment, do you think?
I mean, I'm having something of I wouldn't call it a renaissance, but a reinvigoration on the music side of things. I just finished a national solo tour, and that was really confidence building because after a couple of shows, it all started coming back to me what it was that I have to do to compel an audience and to communicate with them, and they turned up wherever I went. They turned up, and I was worried that they may not. So that's always a really lovely thing, especially when you've kind of moved away from the core of stuff. Like Hobart's a pretty cool town, but it's very, you know it's distant. So that was really encouraging, and it's given me a lot of, it's made me excited about this tour coming up, because I know they'll turn up again, and I'm recording a new album, so I'm in the midst of that, and it feels good. I think there's a bit of promise there, and as you're getting older, like I am, like we all are, but as an older musician, it's kind of those moments are rarer and rarer, and you got to seize them. So, as soon as I'm done with this interview, I'm back into mixing some new music, and I won't move from this spot.
Well, Glenn Richards, I mean, make no mistake of it, your fans are going nowhere. When I found out that I was going to interview you, I was keen beans because I've been
Oh,
following your
cheers, man.
career, since the 90s. Oh, something's going on out there, car accident. Whoops.
Oh,
Slow
shit.
down, it's Christmas. But what was I saying? I get distracted so easy. So yeah, I've been following your career since the 90s. So yeah, I'm not going anywhere. I will be at the show and
Great.
I'm excited. Um, so let's talk about the tour. So are we going to hear the whole Moo album with some, special additions, etc.? What are we going to?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that it sort of makes sense just to play it from start to finish. I don't really see that there's any reason to mess with that because that's how we put the record together. And back then, sequencing a record was a pretty important process, and probably more important, or we thought it was more important than it actually is. But people have been listening to it that way for so long that, we'll try to put some different kind of energy into the songs, but and we do have a guest musician coming along as well, Dan Loscombe, who's my old friend and well known to people from bands like the Black Eyed Susans and the Drones, and
Mm.
so that's going to make things, that'll flesh it out in a beautiful way because he's one of the finest musos that I know. Um, and look, I mean, the point of it is to give people what they expect and then a whole lot more because it's 2026, when we're doing this,
Yep.
and they want that version of us, which is, hopefully still vibrant, but in a different way. Yeah, and a bit older, a bit more able to inhabit the tunes.
Bit more wiser.
Well, I think so.
Let's go with that word.
Yeah.
Um, hey, last question. You kind of touched on it a little bit already, but 2026, once the tour is wrapped up, what are some of the big plans for you? I mean, I know that you said you're working on a new album. Is that
Yeah.
planning to come out in 2026?
Well, yeah, I really hope so. It depends on how, how lazy I am or not lazy when I wake up each morning. I know it's up to me. Um, I know that I'll have all of the tracking done by probably February, March or something, and then it's just down to if I take my time with all the overdubs and stuff. But I think so, and there's a good chance it'll get a UK and European release. There's a label over there that's already really interested. So I think that's the rest of my 26 is just trying to make that happen. Hmm.
Glenn Richards, the musicianship of Augie March is just incredible. I can't wait to see the tour. Like I said, everybody, 3rd of April it kicks off in WA, wraps up 17th of April in Queensland. There are a few more announcements to come along that we're not privy to just yet, so keep
That's
your
right.
eyes peeled on their website and on their Facebook. But Glenn Richards, I will see you in Adelaide on Saturday, the 4th of April at the Gov, my favourite.
Yeah, my favorite too there.
Glenn, have a
Thanks,
great
Marcus.
Christmas, have a happy New Year's, and I'll see you in 2026.
Thanks, Marcus.